Hello and welcome to Transformation Now. Hi, I'm Rita Rocker, speaker, author, and trainer with SoaringHigher.rocks, and I am very happy to continue my program on having a powerful professional image. That is so important in today's world. There's so much competition. There's a lot of issues that we have to deal with nowadays, even with like other people's temperaments, because it's not as the same as it used to be. There's so many things going on in the world. And so these things will be helpful to you to maintain a positive, confident image and also be more comfortable talking with other people from various socioeconomic and educational levels. So I'm going to continue on where I ended the last time, and that is on exhibiting the kind of impression that you want other people to have of you. All right? Because people are constantly creating impressions, they're making judgments, they're perceiving us a certain way by how we act, speak, look, and write. And so we always want to be very careful to keep those in line where it's a positive way to communicate with other people, build relationships, build businesses, and maintain them for years to come. Okay, so when conducting business, which includes business social events, ensure that your appearance, wardrobe, grooming are exhibiting the kind of impression that you really want to give to people and you want them to have of you. I remember one time when I was working in a corporation, and it was a high-class professional organization, and they had their holiday party, which we used to call Christmas party. And so a gal who was she was an intern, and she was very smart. She was very skilled in what she was going to do. It was a computer aggregator company. But when she came to the party, she wore a cute red dress, but it was very low cut, and people saw a big rose tattooed in a specific place that was showing out of her dress, cleavage. And it put a message in there like, hey, you're too distracting. I mean, she had kind of the asymmetrical, this was almost shaved, this was longer, but she did a great job, and they had planned on actually hiring her onto the company. But when they saw how she exposed herself in that respect, they did not want her to do anything that would represent the company in a poor manner, going out and building new business relationships, which she would have been doing. So they declined to hire her. And you know, there's other times when we exhibit impressions, like I spent a lot of years in human resources, and I know that probably even more now with the electronic, Facebook and Instagram and all of those, that if a person is being considered for being hired to a company, quite often a person in human resources or a manager of the department, whoever it might be, they're going to look them up. They're going to look them up on social media. And another case was of a gal that had the opportunity. She'd gone through all the interviews, she'd gone through everything, and they were going to hire her for a position. But then when they looked at her Facebook, and she was wearing just a low-cut tank top with a beer bottle, okay, and some other ones, and they said, no, we don't want someone like that representing our company. So even in your private life, if you're wanting to work for a company that's a little bit more conservative, where they actually do sales or marketing, things like that, it's going to make a difference what they see on social media. So that's something to definitely take consideration of. And so appearance, wardrobe, grooming, again, are going to exhibit the kind of impression that we want to give to others, hopefully. So our appearance reveals a lot about our self-image, and that's so important. If we appear more responsible, organized, and capable, then that means we're looking like we're all put together. I know that sounds kind of strange maybe, but people are going to say, oh, you're really put together. You really are focused. I like everything about you. I like how you communicate. I like how you look. I like how you present yourself. And so people will think about that. So when people take pride in their appearance, the hiring manager or the potential client also assumes that they take pride in their work and the client's business as well. Okay, so they're going to be judging a lot of things to say, hey, do I want to have a relationship with this person? They just really seem like they're all pulled together. And so again, how we act, speak, look, and write is very, very important. Introductions and mingling. I'd rather honestly speak in front of 500 people than try to go into a networking room and try to approach people that I don't know. It's easy to teach it, but it's a little bit harder. And I know that goes back to rejection issues from when I was a kid. Okay, so sometimes we have issues in us, maybe we grew up with that or we've experienced, and it's actually impacting how we are dealing with other people, how we are communicating. Feeling shy and inferior. Maybe we're afraid they won't like us, and which is just something in here. And so then what happens is we don't reach out. We don't communicate with people. Maybe we avoid going to networking events that actually could bring in beautiful new relationships, but we're just too afraid of that because we don't want to be rejected. So think about all those things that are maybe inside your head too that might be impacting what you're doing. And so those are very, very important as well. And so we always think about that. How will they think of us? What am I going to focus on? And so a lot of times too, think about where are you going? Are you going to an event that has a specific industry? Okay, and it could be a financial industry, it could be music, it could be sports, whatever the case may be. And so a lot of times, if you can definitely, if you get a list where there are people who signed up for it, and then it shows the company that they work for, because that happens quite a bit. Look those up. Get involved in that, looking up the information, looking up any people, the company, whatever you can, to familiarize yourself with what kind of people are going to be there. And that really helps a lot of times to make you more comfortable. One of the things that when I was working for a Chamber of Commerce that I loved is when I was working there, I was a project manager, and so I had duties. And for me, that was so much more comfortable than just trying to go into an event and a network. And so if you're very shy, you're feeling introverted, you're a little bit nervous, volunteer for helping. Could be at the front desk, the registration table, or something else. So volunteer if you're nervous, because then you have a job and you're more comfortable doing that job as you approach other people and talk to other people. So that can make a difference too. Another thing is, if you're feeling kind of lonely and awkward, the best thing to do is look around the room and spot someone. You can tell, maybe they're standing alone, they look a little uncomfortable. Spot that kind of person and go up to them and start talking to them. You're shy maybe, they're shy obviously. And so you start talking with someone like that, it makes them feel more confident and appreciated, and you are too, okay? So that's one way to do that, is pick out people who are lonely instead of the star of the room if you're not comfortable, and work your way through meeting other people. And so they will appreciate being invited into a conversation, who knows? It might end up being an absolutely fantastic opportunity. I remember when I was with the Omaha Chamber a little bit, I went to an event and I was uncomfortable myself, and I saw a man standing there that was really looking extremely uncomfortable, and as I looked a little farther, I realized that's my veterinarian. So I think that was the only event he went to. So I went up and talked to him. We were both a lot more comfortable, having something that we could talk about there. So think about that too. And so conversations always want to, promote confidence in other people. And another thing is, sometimes we see someone or a few people in a group and we're thinking, oh man, I'd love to go talk to this person or that person, or I'd like to get involved with that, but I'm just too shy. I don't want to feel like I'm butting in or anything like that. And the best way to do that is wait until, somebody breaks the circle, they go another way, or maybe a couple people do, and then fit into that circle that's just now changing bodies, changing people, and you're a lot more comfortable, so you're not really interrupting something, but you're just stepping into a new conversation. And sometimes that can really help too. It just helps with building up those relationships and not feeling, kind of weird or uncomfortable about doing that. But also, people approach quite often someone whose back is towards the light. So if it's during the daytime and you're at an event with windows, put your back to the light, put your back to a window, because it just automatically kind of draws people to you. All right, you always want your posture to be erect, not slumped, not looking like, oh, please don't approach me because I don't know what I'll say. And palms up, fingers open, says, hey, come on into my space, let's talk. Where closed off, turned away, looking around, says, stay away. And yes, I do tell girls to do that when there's boys that are kind of, maybe treating them a little scary. But for the most part in business, again, you want to open up so that people can approach you. They feel like you want to talk to them, not like you're shutting them out. And so think about that as well. And then also be mindful that the best conversationalists aren't necessarily the ones who have all the stuff to say, but they have the best listening skills. Everybody wants to be listened to and maybe have some feedback on something they've said, because if you give them feedback, then they know you actually were listening and you heard them. And so think about that as well. Maybe you don't have a lot to say, but you are one heck of a good listener. People will love that, and they will be drawn to you because they know you're not going to be spacing them off thinking about other things, but you're actually going to be listening to them. Then the conversation builds from there, confidence builds, and it can end up in some really, really good relationships. Okay, introductions, or another thing that can be confusing. And a lot of times in a training program, I will actually have people role play and get up and do that with each other to build up their confidence. And so when you introduce two people, the one with the least important title, I don't like that term, but the least important title, regardless of gender, is introduced to the person with the most important title. And so for an example, it could be Mr. or Ms. Greater Authority, which could be an owner, a director, manager, somebody totally different, the head coach, I don't care, but somebody who is considered with greater authority, okay, would like to introduce them to Mr. or Ms. Less Authority. And so, an example would be, Dr. Johnson, I would like to introduce you to my friend Penny Jones. Penny just moved here from Arizona. Penny, this is Dr. Eric Johnson, and he is the head of the psychology department or whatever at the med center. Okay, so you're giving them a little conversational starter too. He can ask her, oh, what brought you here from Arizona, blah, blah, and then she can ask him about his position there. So you want to say the one with the greater authority title, and then give each of them one little nugget, something about the other person that they can start talking about while you go on and maybe introduce some other people. So that really helps if you do that. Now, if it's somebody from another company, then the one with the greater title is actually the guest. Okay, so that would be somebody that could be a client instead. So, and always watch how people are reacting. And then introductions should be brief. Don't want any long introduction because people are busy, and then you can build from there. But just saying, oh, how do you do? Or hello is fine. You never want to say, I'm happy to meet you. Why? Because what's the first word out of your mouth? I'm happy to meet you. Instead, you would want to say something like, oh, it's very nice to meet you. And so think about that as well, and follow up on that. Always think of how you're communicating with people. And then, okay, it's like, I know I met this person before, so what do I do? And you could say, oh, we met last month at the marketing conference at Embassy Suites. I'm Rita Rocker, for instance. And they should offer the name to you at that point. Maybe you saw them, maybe you met them, maybe you don't remember their name, but you know where you ran into them at. And so if they don't, then all you need to do is just smile and say, I apologize, would you give me your name again, please? Because it shows you're interested enough to get their name so you can carry on a conversation. So sometimes that's embarrassing. I know I'm probably not the only one in the world who I would run into somebody that I knew, maybe it'd been a long time ago, and I could not think of their name. And so I'm talking to them while I'm with someone, but I don't introduce them because I think, oh my gosh, I don't remember what their name is, which is embarrassing. So we really shouldn't just do it that way, because it kind of makes the one you're with feel out of the conversation completely. So be careful with that. But the main point to remember is to lean slightly forward, give a warm handshake to that person, smile, and be totally sincere and engaged in getting to know them and what they do. People can tell if you're engaged in talking to them, if you're enjoying or not. Okay, so always think about that. And then why is it so hard to remember people's names? Sometimes I remember something really silly that happened when I was a kid, but it's like, oh my gosh, I met this person, I forgot their name. Remember their face, can't remember their name. So why is it so hard? Well, again, during the last program I mentioned, during that first 7 seconds that we meet someone, people are making all kinds of judgments about every part of our life, who we are, what we do, what our confidence level is, our socioeconomic and educational levels, our trustworthiness, our social position, everything. And so in that first 7 seconds, people are judging. Oh, look at this person. Hey, great shoes. Boy, their hair looks like a mess. Somebody asked me the other day about somebody that I knew from the past. I was like, oh, did you see his teeth? And I said, no. I thought, ugh. But, so people will notice all kinds of things. And so, they're looking at their clothing, their hair, if they're groomed, if they're not groomed, the myriad of other things. So they're not listening. So when people stand up to introduce themselves at a table where it's kind of a networking event and you say your name first, it's like, oh, gee, what was their name? Now, because we're still watching. And so the best thing to do is to have them actually hear your name by introducing the other part of who you are first, not some long drawn out introduction either. The best way to, particularly for a large group of people that you don't know, is to first say what you do. Oh, you mean I don't say my name first? No. When you're in a group and you stand up, say what you do, for whom, and then your name. So an example for me would be, hi, I provide professional communication, image, and career development programs with SoaringHigher.rocks. I'm Rita Rocker. Okay, so again, what I do, for whom, which would be SoaringHigher.rocks, and then my name. By then they're actually listening to your name, so they remember it and they catch it. And so I also paused, I said Rita Rocker. So if you put a little pause between your first and your last name, it's a whole lot easier to hear the last name and, to catch the information they need. Because a lot of times people just kind of blab on and they, say their name so fast, it's like, what was that? And so that way you're putting a pause in there, they're listening, and then they catch it. So think about that when you are introducing yourself in networking groups. Now you can do the same thing when you're just walking up to people and shaking their hands. And it's a little odd at first. That's another thing when I've taught classes that I've had people practice. And it's like, this is kind of uncomfortable. I said, I know it is, until you get used to it. But it will definitely help people to remember your name, most importantly. So always think about that. And the person should be very focused on paying attention to you at that point, and vice versa. Because again, we want our focus and attention to be on them, to build up relationships and trust. Okay, so when shaking hands, I've had fun doing this at programs too. The etiquette says usually the woman extends her hands first to a man. That's not critical. Things change over the years, but that's, basically how it's always been. That she shows her confidence, she extends her hand to a man to shake hands. And so again, you want medium pressure, all right? You want to do 2 or 3 pumps with your hand, not shaking it up or down, and hold it in a vertical stance, okay? And I've told people, okay, if someone takes your fingers, and they do this little wimpy handshake, what is that saying? One of 2 things. It could either say, I don't have enough confidence in myself to really give you a handshake, or you're not worth my time, so here, just take my fingers. You don't deserve my whole hand in shaking the hand. So think about that. You don't want a knuckle buster either, but you want a confident handshake. And so they say too, as you're leaning forward, I think this is kind of interesting, if you see the color of their eyes, then you know you've made a connection with that person. People also want about 18 inches of space, at least in America, because they don't want somebody right in their face. So 18 inches of space, you've got kind of the length of the arm and the fingers there. You're not in their face, they're not in your face, but you're definitely close enough to have a private conversation and to be comfortable and give them a nice firm handshake. So think about that. One thing that sales reps, a lot of I hate to say this like you use car salesmen, but that's what comes to my mind. And that's what happened to me one time. And it's like some salespeople are taught that when they take a person's hand, they immediately go like that. And the person they're talking to, okay, their hand is underneath. And why is that? Okay, because they subconsciously have the upper hand. We've all heard that term, has the upper hand. That's what they're literally trying to do, is take your hand and do this. I have the upper hand. It's subliminal, and it's going like, okay, I'm in control of this. And so that's a psychological power kind of a thing to do. However, all you have to do is turn the hand right, shaking it, turn the hand right up and say, it's very nice to meet you. And so as I was talking to a group of businesswomen one time, and one of these ladies, she's a real spunky, feisty woman, it surely was. And she said, yes, a guy did that to me one time. And so, you'll see it in like presidents too and politicians, stuff like that. Somebody's like shaking one hand and then the other person put their hand in there and then the other one puts their hand on top to get the psychological message of, okay, I have the most power. Well, so she said a guy did that to me and we shook hands and then he put his other hand on top of my hand to show subconscious control. I said, so what did you do? And she says, I took my other hand and put it on top of his. And I said, so what did he do? And she said, I could tell that didn't settle at all with him. He did not like that. So he pulled his hand away and we all started laughing because we thought it was fun. We knew what was going on, but she did too. So she took control of who she was. And it's like, no. We're on an equal playing field here. You don't subconsciously have control over what I'm doing or who I am or what I have to offer. So think about that when you're shaking hands with people. That's very important. That's kind of an international way of greeting or saying goodbye or an agreement on a particular business issue. So again, you always want to exhibit friendly bravery. Some people are shy. They don't want to go to business, professional events or any kind of event. Could be a sporting event. You're meeting other people. Maybe your kids are going to something. It's like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to talk to the other parents because, I don't feel like I'm up to their level. But no, so try to introduce yourself, especially at work events, whether, if it's a business or whether it's a conference or whether it's a business social event. Okay, always try to introduce yourself to a few people because I've heard too, okay, I don't really want to go to this business holiday party, but I guess I have to. I'm really uncomfortable about it. At least go in for a half an hour, go around, chat with as many people as possible before you leave. That way it's known, oh yes, this person showed up, she was interested or he was interested. We talked to a few minutes instead of, why'd you avoid? Why didn't you come to the event? And again, that doesn't show as much of a team player as it would. So just go for a half hour, do your thing, and then leave. So that is also very, very important to do. And so you always want to be considered to be part of the winner's circle by displaying, revealing, and showing who you really are and how comfortable you are. And again, the thought came to me to go back to what your previous life has been. Because so many times, again, like I mentioned in the last program, if we dealt with rejection or abandonment or fear or heard a lot of words like, oh, you're never going to amount to anything, you're not like your brother or sister, this one down here, who do you think you are? You're never going to be successful. We've heard a lot of, I've experienced a lot of things, but so many people have something that's been in their brain that causes them not to be comfortable, to feel inferior. And so I just felt like bringing that up again for the last couple minutes of, no, don't do that. God created us all equal. We're all his kids. And so know that you have just as much to offer. Somebody maybe have a lot of education, but they don't have the personality, they don't have the temperament, they might think they're high and mighty, or they might think my education takes care of everything. So that little peon, I don't have to worry about this person caring or liking me. So no, think about those things. And I'm working on my 5th book about Miracle in Your Mirror, pursuing your passion at any age. And I think that's so true, because so many times things that have happened to us in the past, we put our passion, we put our desire, we put that thing we've always wanted to do up on a shelf, you know, and life goes on. And then maybe at an older age, it's like, oh my gosh, I've wanted to do this since I was a teenager or whatever. And now it's too late. No, it's never too late. And when I talked to a 80-year-old lady a few years ago at a women's event that I was doing, she says, well, I'd love to be involved in something, but I'm just too old. And I said, no, you're not. You have all this experience, all this, you know, you've experienced so much that you can share with other people to help them avoid certain things that they would do or experience if it wasn't for your advice, your examples, your true stories. I said, I don't care how old a person is, and I'm dealing with that myself, that no, we all have things that we can share with people, that we can bless them with. And a lot of times now, I think it's very important that the older people and the younger people get together, learn from each other. And I would really encourage everyone to do that. So with that, I'm going to break for now. And then the next program, I'll talk about social etiquette tips, dressing for success, and business over any kind of social event, especially when it includes meals. So look forward to seeing you next time. God bless.